But via this particular statement, I'm going to suggest that you might need to do some work to deconstruct racist ideology that you may be unaware of.
What's good, you guys, and welcome back again on another episode today. How are you all doing? I hope you guys are doing good. And if you're joining for the very first time, thank you so much for being here today. In today's video, we are going to be talking about this video that this doctor posted on TikTok. He posted this video and he posted it as a question, but things went left almost immediately. The video has been taken down because people were not having it. They aren't seeing that question as a very reasonable question. And then again, the intro of that video was not given at all because people are tired of that tactics. And I want to ask you guys this question before we even go into that video, that when you come across a video, especially from a palm-colored person, starting it with, oh, I don't mean to be racist, or saying something like, oh, I've been meaning to ask this question, but I don't want people to start calling me racist if I ask this question. What do you guys think when you come across videos like that? You already know that what they are going to say after that is a lot of BS. Without wasting much time, let me just get right into it. The original video has been taken down, but from all I have put together, you guys are going to get the context of what he said. So,
I have a question, but I'm afraid to ask it because I don't want to be labeled as a racist.
Jesus Christ.
I've been an ear doctor for 10 years now, and a significant amount of my African American patients, while I'm doing a history and physical to understand better what's going on with their problem today, they have someone on the phone. A large percentage of my African American patients have someone that's there in the room even though they're not there in the room. Why is that?
I'll address your question in a minute. Meanwhile, I'm not going to say that you or the question you asked are racist. But via this particular statement, I'm going to suggest that you might need to do some work to deconstruct racist ideology that you may be unaware of.
When I, myself, not speaking for an entire race or ethnicity, have a doctor come in, I hang up my phone.
I appreciate you sharing your individual perspective, but I'm making this post in hopes of getting you to understand that your skin color, it just may make it easier for you to view the world through a lens of individualism as opposed to experiencing it in a box of systems. And as far as your question goes, there's not a single definitive answer, because Black people are not a monolith. People could be on the phone for several reasons. It could be that Black people in this nation have a very different experience with healthcare providers than our non-melanated counterparts. It could be that many of the questions you need answers to regarding family aren't accessible because of this nation's history with Black folks. It could be that being alone in a room with a white man, doctor or otherwise, may not be the jam you think it is. Or they could be responding to your energy and just decide not to put what they have going on hold. I'm just saying that if you want an answer to this question, be the kind of person, doctor or otherwise, that builds the rapport and earns the respect that allows you to ask that question to individuals, instead of hurling it at a community on TikTok.
As a racist, I've gotten backlash before online, and it's horrible. But here we go!
I'm not here to educate you because you already know the answer to this question. And the fact that you added this disclaimer before you asked it goes to show that you are baiting Black people on TikTok. And as a doctor, you are the reason why we get on the phone and call our friends and family when we go to the emergency room. Turn in your motherfucking license. Thank you.
They have someone on the phone. They're either just talking on the phone or they're on FaceTime.
I can't speak for everybody, but it's because most people don't trust you. And it's nothing personal to you specifically as a doctor. It's the same reason as to why we record cops. We can't trust that we'll be treated fairly or be heard properly. Because obviously, Black people have a history of being hurt and harmed in the hands of people that are supposed to protect them and make them better. A lot of doctors till this day still believe that Black people feel pain way less than white people. A large amount of our women don't make it out of pregnancy. And since you're a doctor, I can assume assume that you know the research behind the fact that a lot of Black people are not listened to in hospitals or in emergency clinics or in their physician's offices. They could complain about having a problem for decades and still not be heard. There are plenty of stories with women like myself who suffer from migraines that have been heavily dismissed by doctors. And that's not to say that this doesn't happen to white people or other ethnicities, but it happens to Black people at a much higher rate. And obviously, because we're talking about medical problems and medicine, they often end with fatal results or results that can cause big damages to our lives and our health. So in conclusion, due to the long history of Black people being neglected and dismissed in medical facilities, we have to take precautionary measures, right? Because even let's say you neglected my needs for a year, even though I kept telling you I have migraines and you neglected that, when we go to court, I don't have any documentation or proof to really say that I did that. And so more than often, you guys don't get reprimanded for your neglect. You guys don't get reprimanded for your lack of care for our health. And again, not to dismiss other people's problems. This is a Black people issue right now. So we have to take precautionary measures and make sure that somebody else listens. Somebody else can be our witness as to what we're saying is wrong, as to what we're saying is happening. So yeah, there you have it. We're still suffering from systematic racism, generational trauma.
I have a question, but I'm afraid to ask it because I don't want to be labeled as a racist.
No, you're not. What you're afraid of is your implicit bias at best or your actual racism at worst will be clocked for exactly what it is. And as you already stated, you have been on the receiving end of backlash, which is really scary and no one wants to be on the receiving end of. Because if you were afraid of actually being called a racist, you would not hop on this app of billions of users and put this question out into the atmosphere. You would instead, in over the 10 years of making this observation, you would just ask your patients this in the privacy of the room. And Dr. Mack, you certainly would not be asking this question in uniform with your name highly visible. To say you are afraid of being called a racist, but having that information out there it's not tracking here. But assuming you are asking in good conscience, I will bite. As a medical professional, you may or may not have heard of the term medical racism. When interacting with medical professionals, people of color are disproportionately on the end of negative health outcomes as a result of medical racism. There are so many disparities in the medical system that disproportionately and adversely affects people of color at a rate that is not seen in comparison to their white counterparts. I have never been a patient of yours, so I cannot speak for your patients. However, I imagine your patients of color, specifically your African American patients, are aware of the medical racism that exists within the medical field. And if they are in the ER alone, they are likely on the phone with someone they trust. It's probably a point of comfort for them to know that there is someone there on the other line in an uncertain environment that can advocate for them, maybe in a way that they cannot advocate for themselves, who will ask the questions that maybe they will not think to ask in that moment of distress. Again, I am not one of your patients, so I cannot speak to your patients who are doing this and engaging in this behavior. However, in the future, if you want to know the answer to a question, just go straight to the source and ask them. In the meantime, however, please take the opportunity to educate yourself on medical racism and how this impacts your patients of color, specifically your Black patients.
I have a question, but I'm afraid to ask it because I don't want to be labeled as a racist.
This reminds me of a post that I just shared to my story yesterday, and it was from last year. Y'all remember when the girl was like, my Black friend got her hair done. How do I ask her about her hair without it seeming racist? This is the exact type of scenario. And in that, I responded, maybe just ask her like you would anybody else. My thing is, and my question to you, sir, I can't even remember your name. Do you not know any other Black doctors or Black people to ask this question to? And are you not aware of how the health system is in the U.S.?
I have a question, but I'm afraid to ask it because I don't want to be labeled as a racist.
So he asked why a lot of his Black patients are on the phone or on FaceTime when they are at the doctor's office being seen. And I think a lot of it is a comfort thing. If they can't have somebody physically there with them, then they feel a lot better having somebody on the phone with them. Also, just having somebody to bear witness to what's going on, because a lot of times doctors will ignore Black pain. And I think a lot of that goes back to slavery and slaves being beaten and still being made to go work through their pain. Now, just because we go to work with the pain does not mean that the pain is not there. And I think because we continue to do a lot of things and we're not on the floor and we're not performing for them, we're not looking like we're just in such agony and holding our stomachs and, in a ball on the floor, that we're not believed. But it does not mean that the pain is not there. A lot of Black people back in the day lost their lives because they wouldn't be seen at certain hospitals. They were refused service and had to go to another hospital, and by then it was too late. So that distrust has been there. On top of that, they're racist in every industry. And there was this guy on here a few days ago that was talking about how he met this retired firefighter, and the firefighter was talking about how back in the day, they would just let Black families, burn up in house fires and stuff like that. So I definitely believe that the racism, while it may not be blatant anymore, it's just transformed into something quieter. And I do think that there are doctors that do not care about their Black patients and will misdiagnose them and will, try and redirect them or dismiss their pain so that they can just go off and just pass away because they just don't care. So we very much have every right to be suspicious of doctors.
I have a question, but I'm afraid to ask it because I don't want to be labeled as a racist.
So this right here is a prime example of why I think there are certain professions that should not be allowed to make monetized content online utilizing their professional identity, especially if that professional identity has an ethical code that they have to uphold. He didn't ask this question in good faith. Oh, I have a question, and I'm just a white guy asking a question. Black people, those blacks, they're just so hard to figure out. He asked this question for the sole purpose of going viral. He knew exactly what to say. That's why he prefaced that video in the beginning, because he knew that he could get your attention. He's going to ask this dumbass question, because he knew it was going to generate content. He posted the same video on his Instagram. Has the comment section wide open and got people going back and forth. He knew what he was doing. The man who went through a medical school program within the last 20 years, he should not be asking this question. If you're going to ask this question, why would you ask it of the internet? Be serious.
What do you guys think about that video, and what do you think about what these people said? I love the last stage. What that woman said is literally how I feel about his video as well. If you've been to school and been practicing for the past 20 years and you're still online asking this type of question, I believe he's doing this to get, one, the attention of Black people, and two, to actually make money off of it. I totally believe that he's monetizing that video because he knows that the hook he added in the beginning of the video is going to get the attention of Black people. If you need to put that disclaimer before you post a question, you might as well just use Google, because why are you posting that question? As a doctor, you are educated, you know how these things, you know how Black people feel about that intro in particular, that phrase of "I don't want to be labeled as," when you're already, because after saying that, he asked a very dumb question, but he posted the very first question forward just so that people will not, or people will reduce how they are coming for him, which in this case for him did not work for him. As somebody who has been dragged before, he doesn't want to be dragged, and I think that's the reason why he posted that statement. Somebody who went to school, as somebody who is actively practicing in the United States, this person can say they don't know about history, they don't know about the medical racism, they don't know what Black people go through in healthcare, they don't know the rate at which Black women even die when giving birth. You think they are going to come see you guys without holding on to something, without recording, without putting somebody on the phone? And another valid reason why this isn't even about the color of the skin when you're going to the hospital, another reason why people have another person on the phone when they are visiting these people, is because there are questions that you might need to ask, but there is this way you feel in the hospital, this anxiety, that you can just easily forget what you're supposed to ask. The person on the phone will be able to think calmer than you and remember those questions for you. This is another reason why people can be on the phone when they are seeing their doctors. Another thing is, according to history, they need to hold on to something. You will be acting weird and funny sometimes. They need to hold on to something, because if anything shifts left, at least they have an evidence for it, because when there's no evidence for it, who is going to believe them? And I agree with the lady that said the reason why they're on the phone is the reason why they get scared when they are stopped by the cops, because it is what it is. It's just not a very safe system for people of color? And why are you coming online to ask when you have come across several Black Americans patients during the day? Why not just post that question to them? Why are you really asking that to billions of people if you're not trying to get some things off of it? So let me hear what you guys think in the comment section. I totally agree. I agree with the very first stage and the last stage. The last stage really made it for me, because why are you asking such questions? Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you all so much for joining, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, and I love you guys.